I have been riding the Luna X2 e-bike now for, I don't know how many months. Look at the last video, I suppose. How long have I had it? I've been riding around mostly on the streets, you know, using it for commuting, going downtown, fun stuff like that. Well, yesterday I took it on some serious trails, and now I would really like to talk about it. Really. So I hope you don't mind if I do a little bit of wrenching while I talk about the Luna X2, because I got some things to do. But I really wanted to talk about the bike because I got it out on some trails, you know, some jumps, some what I would consider extreme mountain bike trails. These are trails that you don't want to bring a normal mountain bike on. I tried. I went there a few weeks back with a normal analog bike, and nearly impossible. Not completely impossible, but you have to be an elite rider to make these trails without walking a ton of the inclines. And the inclines aren't much. The place is called The Grinder. It's a private course, a dude that just has been building fun courses now for like 4 years on his property, and it's down in the Ozarks. It's really rocky. It's got a lot of like clay, hard pack sections. It's an extremely fun place. Oh my Lord, it is so fun. So I rode it with an analog bike first. I didn't make even a half lap on there. I think I made 2.5 miles or something like that. And I was so spent, like my lungs hurt so much because of these extreme climbs. And he's an e-biker. He has a bunch of e-bikes. He has friends with e-bikes. He has a little bike shop that's there. And so they're built for e-bikes is what I'm trying to tell you. And yesterday, since he was going to be part of our group, there's going to be another e-bike. I was like, all right, instead of the analog bike, I don't want to be like so slow because I'm not in shape enough to ride these trails. I'm gonna bring my e-bike. And one of my buddies, Chris Schumann from TGH, had just taken it down to his family's place in the Ozarks, and he rode it and brought it back, and he's gushing about it. He loved it. So it's like, I definitely need to get this off trails. I really don't want to ride it on the trails around Columbia, where we are here in town, because I want to get in better shape. And honestly, all the trails around Columbia are built for bicycles, and so there's really nothing that needs the e-bike. I'm not in that bad of a shape. But if I had like injuries, or if I wanted to go for super long rides or longer rides, then definitely the e-bike is the way. But it's not necessary, all right? So I haven't been doing it, but this was my chance. And I went out there and we rode for an hour and a half. I don't know what my average speed was. It used like 15% of the battery, not very much, to tell you the truth. I never had a problem on any climb, and I kept in 3. So you've got 5 normal modes of power assist, and then you have boost. And there was never any hill that I needed more than 3. And a few times I gave it a little bit more throttle, which gives you a lot more than just the pedal assist. And it had 0 problems. You just got to make sure you're in the right gear. And I was in the right gear for me pedaling, not necessarily the e-biking portion, right? So I had a cadence to where I could pedal. If it was uphill, I had my seat post up. And if it was downhill, I had my seat post down. And it did fantastic. The handling of the bike was superb. Now, I would say, as a complaint, it's slightly longer wheelbase than a normal mountain bike that I would ride. Okay, I've got a Trek something. I've got a Trek something, full suspension, a decent bike. And I could tell whenever I would go off of objects and want to keep my front end up, or, wheelie off or jump or whatever the case was, I could tell that there was like 3 more inches of wheelbase that I just wasn't used to. And outside of that, because of the extra wheelbase, it was really sensitive to my weight transfers. So if I was going through a berm, right, and I tried to lean back a little bit on the berm, that front end would get really light. I actually had my tire go over the top of the berm on one knob. Unfortunately, it was at the very end of the berm and not in the middle of the berm. That would have been real fun because these hills are kind of steep and all the berms are on the side of a hill, and you go over the edge and like you've got some space to drop. So besides the weight transfer being a little funky to me, I really like the geometry of the bike. I think it needs a little bit of tweaks for my own comfort. I've been talking so much, I totally forgot to wrench. Totally fine. Ignore the wrenching at this point. So we've got the weight transfer that's a little bit different, the wheelbase that's a little bit different than a normal bike, and the geometry of it, just where the seat and the handlebars are as compared to my Trek, is just a little different. I think it's a little bit more stretched out than what my other bike is because my lower back was more tired than normal. But it's also not designed to be a pedal bike, so the position of the pedals is going to be a little bit different. I think what I need to do is I need to move my seat about 1 inch forwards, and maybe, I don't even know if I can get a shorter stem at this point, but I would want to move the stem a little bit closer to me, because since we've got electric assist on there, I can get over the bars and climb better even without being able to pull on the bars. So I could just use the electric and my weight balance to keep the front end down. Never had an issue with it trying to wheelie out from underneath me. The tires are obviously great. The transmission, whatever you would call the forward drive, the mid drive thing, the gears were about right. Now the guy, Gary, who owns the grinder, he did suggest that I actually gear up 2 teeth in front. And I think that was more for a cadence thing, because he said on his bike he did that and it put it into a better position where you weren't constantly wheeling up hills. So you're actually going to have a lower cadence for your pedaling, which is a little nicer, to tell you the truth. And you would be in a larger ring in the back. So your final top speed would be the same, but your pedal cadence is a little bit slower. You don't have as much like torque jump every time you pedal. So maybe that's why he recommended that. I don't really think, I didn't have a problem with that. It wasn't trying to wheelie out from underneath me, but I also have been riding the Sur-On so much, which is a really wheelie happy bike. I've been riding that off-road enough that I know, you really got to get your weight over the front on these bikes when you're going up hills like that. There's no other option. It's either going to wheelie out from underneath you or you make it up the hill. And I even got to the point to where I was transferring my weight so far forward that I was actually losing traction on there, which is normally how it wouldn't, on a normal bicycle, you don't get to that point. Usually, because you got your ass on the seat or whatever is keeping your weight transferred to the rear. So what would be my review of this? I'm sure they're coming out with the next 3 soon, or already have, because I typically at this point I'm on the tail end of these sorts of technologies because I don't need another e-bike in my stable. But I absolutely loved it off-road. The suspension geometry was very predictable. I got to the point where I was actually wheeling it through sections and being able to manual, you've got a teeter-totter style or a TP style, whatever you would call that kind of stuff, jumps. I was actually getting to the point to where I could jump and then manual down the back side. Even though it was a lot harder than my normal bike because of the extra length of it, I was still able to. And again, if the manualing is the problem, I suppose that I should try to get a shorter stem. That would give me a little bit better position and leverage for manualing, which is something that I wish that I got back. I actually had a dream about manualing the other night, and I manualed for miles at a time. I went down a small hallway and there's all these people in there, and I kind of like bounced it around and then kept manualing the other direction. Occasionally I'll have dreams of that, because when I was young I could just manual for practically ever if there was a slight downhill grade, or go back into pedaling, of course. But a really fun skill that I think I could get on this bike, but it needs a little geometry tweak for me to be able to handle it. Or maybe I just need to be stronger, I need to have more weight in my butt or something like that. I need to eat some more food, extra couple burritos or something. But it is a heavy bike. I could tell the handling of it was definitely a heavy bike. So back to what I was trying to say, as far as an e-bike off-road, this is the most fun that I've ever had. It really handles, not quite like a motorcycle, not quite like a normal lightweight mountain bike, but I think that really good in between. Now, of course, there are much lighter e-bikes out there, have a smaller battery. It's going to be easier to whip around. You'll be quicker in all the sections. The girl that was in front of me that was on an analog bike downhill, she was out of there. I could not keep up. I kept washing my tires out a little bit. I don't quite know the suspension geometry enough to ride that hard line. So it wasn't as fast as it could be, but then on the uphills, of course, I would catch up to her, and I was still just completely spent by an hour and a half, just, from man handling the bike the entire time, or woman handling the bike, or whatever you want to say, person handling the bike. So great time. I would highly recommend this bike to anybody. Haven't had any problems with it. It charges up fine, it discharges fine. What more do you need from an e-bike? It's also one of the most affordable ones in that power range, but the big thing for me has been geometry on these e-bikes. I've never ridden an e-bike that I love the geometry on. And now, of course, there's a lot more out there, but as far as price point and what you get for the money, I still say I think the Luna X2 is the best value on the market right now. And correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments. If there's another company that's selling something that has this sort of suspension geometry, yeah, sure, you can get the Chinese version of it, but it's not going to come with the aftermarket controller and the tuning and the custom firmware. And then, of course, the support from Luna, that if you have anything wrong, you give them a call, you can send them an email, and they're going to give you support. Whereas if you get the Chinese version off of Alibaba or eBay or wherever, you're SOL. Something happens, it's wrong, you are buying the new parts yourself, you're installing them yourself. You have, no tech help, unless you probably go to Luna's YouTube page and you see what they're doing as far as helping people to uninstall and reinstall parts that are bad or whatever. So yeah, I would highly recommend it. If you're looking for an e-bike and you want something in that power range and that, you know, weight range, the battery size, all that kind of good stuff, 2 thumbs up for me. I'm excited about it. And now I'm going to start taking it out more on these trails because there's a weekly ride. It's super rad down there. Absolutely fabulous trail system. So yeah, I'm going to keep riding it. I'm going to ride it into the ground at this point. Maybe do a set of 29ers for it. We'll see. It's 27.5 plus. They're pretty bouncy tires. That'd be like my only thing, is I'd probably want something that's a little bit lighter and more nimble, but yeah, who knows? We'll see. I'll keep you updated on it. So if you do have any questions about it, I think at this point I'm a little bit more, you know, I'm ready to answer. I know more about the bike after riding it in a very hard situation. So leave your comments down below. I'll do my best to get to them. As always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.